There's this saying that art isn't what you have when you have nothing left to add, but rather when you have nothing left to take away. And I think in some ways this applies to a good life lived as well. If you think about it, it's often our bad habits that weigh us down far more than our good habits actually lift us up. So things like addictions, distractions, procrastination, they can often hinder our path towards our goals far more than things like, working hard or getting up early in the morning. Um, but they're often two sides of the same coin, right? If you have discipline, then you can use that discipline to negate a lot of classical bad habits. It is worth taking stock of your life and asking yourself, like, what are the top three things I would change about my habits that would really get me where I want to go? And whether they're things you would take away or things you might add, you can start them in small ways, usually, progressively, right? So you don't have to start going to the gym every single day. You could start with once a week, or you could start with exercise at home. Or for food, you might just cut out like one processed, ultra processed food that you normally eat and see how you feel, and then try to cut more and try to add some healthy options. The point here is that the smaller the change you make, the more likely you are to stick with it, and thus the more likely it is to actually impact the rest of your life. Which is why it's way better to start small than try to do a massive change that most likely won't stick for long. Because it's sort of like that saying, the best diet you can have is the one that you stick to. So in that way, the best life you have is the one that you can stick with. Well, the best version of the one you can stick with. But yeah, the idea of taking away to create art, I think, is really worth pondering, simply because we often keep jamming more and more into our lives and into whatever we do, thinking that more is better. But that's almost like classic consumer culture, where the reality is actually the more you take away, the more space you have for the things you prioritize and value.